Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just broke down the national title game that is going to go on Monday. Wish it wasn't on Monday. Another thing we can talk about on Tuesday, but at the end of the day, I'm going to pick Indiana to finish off the job to win 24 to 21. I think it's going to be a battle. I think it's going to be an absolute war from start to finish, but I think Indiana finds a way to get out of it and go 16-0. The first team ever. Couldn't imagine I would have picked Indiana a couple of years ago if you had asked me that. But let's get into the transfer portal. It's getting weird. It's getting very, very chaotic. It closes at 11:59 tonight. There's going to be a lot of stuff that probably happens before that. Now, kids do not have to be committed by the end of today, just so everyone knows. They can kind of stay in there as long as they want. Some kids will show up at the end of April to some of these teams after spring practice is done. It's weird. It doesn't make sense. At the end of the day, if you don't lose any more players from your team today, that's good news because they can't go anywhere after today. But let's see how this all unfolds. And we got to start with this quarterback market. It is dry. It is officially fully dry. And Dylan Raiola has kind of a lot to do with it in some sense. He finds a way over to Oregon a couple of weeks ago, and Dante Moore finds his way back to Oregon. Dylan Raiola's plan was to go to Oregon understanding that there was a very real possibility that Dante Moore came back. He still has to recover from a broken fibula, whatever that looks like for him. And he's got some things to fix. There's no doubt about that. I really respect this decision from Dylan Raiola. I think it is massively, massively smart for his future. And I think he can be a national title good quarterback in 2027. Oregon's shaping up to have a national title good team in 2026 too. So he's in good shape. I think he made the right decision. That does leave a couple of teams looking around trying to figure out their answers. Ethan Grunkemeyer currently is the top quarterback in there. He's probably going to end up at Virginia Tech, just hasn't been made official yet. We'll watch that one more as the next couple of days move on. Jake Merklinger has committed to UConn, so that one's off the board as well. E.J. Colson is a very interesting name to watch. As far as I'm concerned, an underrated player from Incarnate Word, really talented recruit when he came coming out of high school. I don't know if he ends up at a major team because the only two that really need a quarterback right now are Miami and Tennessee. One of those is pretty occupied right this second. Tennessee tried to make a push for Sam Leavitt, and then Lane Kiffin flew up to Knoxville, Tennessee, and kind of stole him away. But at the end of the day, this is going to be a very, very interesting thing to watch. Jaden Davis also in there from Michigan, very talented recruit. Austin Novosad from Oregon. I expect him to go to Kentucky with Will Stein, but still hasn't committed, so that's something to watch there. But that's about it. Everyone else is gone. Unless something happens today and there's some tampering going on, let's just call it what it is at this point. At this point, it's not really tampering because there's no enforceable rules. So we'll talk about that at another time. We'll talk about how to fix that at another time. But could Miami just go with Emory Williams? Really talented player, someone that they really like, someone that sat behind Carson Beck this year, sat behind Cam Ward last year. Wouldn't be the worst idea in the world. I think it's a very talented kid, very smart kid that fully understands that offense. Could Tennessee go with a guy like George McIntyre, really talented young player? Could they start the freshman coming in, Faison Brandon, another really talented player? Could they pull someone out by the end of the day? They got about 11 hours to pull it off if they're going to. We'll see what's happening there. And Ty Simpson was the big decision here. He's going to go off to the NFL, and love that decision from him. I'll probably talk about more of that next week, but that's a decision that not a lot of kids make. It was the right one for him. As far as I'm concerned, this quarterback class is very interesting, especially with Dante Moore out of it. I think Ty Simpson can be quarterback too, and you never really know where that guy is going to go in the draft because these teams get quarterback desperate pretty quickly. But there's time to talk about Ty Simpson and his NFL draft stock at a later date. For right now, we got to talk about Ole Miss. This is a debacle. It's a really, really weird story. It seems the Ole Miss staff, the Ole Miss administration, whoever, has kind of allowed the term sheets to get out to the players, and it was shown that a couple of transfers that came in are making more money than the guys that returned to Ole Miss instead of finding their way to LSU or to a number of other places that would have more than happily taken them in. As you can imagine, a number of guys were not happy with that. TJ Daugherty has found his way out of the program. Prince Williman Mielen has found his way out of the program. We'll see what happens with those two guys. We'll see what happens with Ole Miss today. There's still some time for some of those guys to find their way out of it. It's a massive mistake. It's something that every single program in the country is dealing with to a certain extent. Frankly, I think all of these things should be readily available to the public, but that's another thing that we have to figure out over the next little bit. At the end of the day, it's a massive mistake from Ole Miss, and Ole Miss fans keep telling me that Lane Kiffin is quote-unquote behind this. Here's the reality with Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss at this very moment. The second that Lane Kiffin left, there was no bones about it. He knew, everyone knew, he was going to try to tear apart that roster. He was going to try to get all of his guys to find their way over to Baton Rouge and join the LSU Tigers. That included Kejuan Lacey, that included Trinidad Chambliss if he was to get another year, which still is up in the air. We'll see. We'll watch that very closely. But at the end of the day, he wants to poach that roster. You knew he wanted to poach that roster. You left the door open. You left the door open and the wolf got into the hen house. That's the way I see that. And now I don't know the details of this. Maybe Lane Kiffin is, hacking into things and finding contracts and releasing it to the... I don't think that's what's happening here. I think Ole Miss made a mistake. I think it gave an opening to a guy like Lane Kiffin, and he was going to take it. And he is taking it. And he's going to pick up a couple of these players, including possibly Prince William Mielen, a difference maker of an edge rusher. It's a massive mistake from Ole Miss. There's no two ways about that. I understand that Lane Kiffin has not been the kindest customer to Ole Miss since he's left there, but the reality is you had to know that this was the reality you were dealing with, and you could not give that guy the opening. You did, and you lost a lot of really good defenders, and you got to figure out how to backfill that in not that much time and not that much supply left. The Texas Longhorns are attacking this one, and there's been already a lot of talk of how much money are they spending. I don't know what the number is. I can promise you the number is obscene. It is a crazy, crazy number because they add Cam Coleman. They get Hollywood Smothers to flip over from Alabama to Texas. They get a guy like Rasheem Biles from Pitt, really talented linebacker that is a difference maker in every single way. And you already have Colin Simmons on the roster. You already have Arch Manning on the roster. You already have Ryan Wingo on the roster. There's a lot of money going around. There's no doubt about that. I don't think anyone's confused about that from Texas because they got a whole lot of money, probably the most money in the entire country, and they're making no bones about it. 2026, they are pushing the chips into the center of the table. Also added Melvin Siani yesterday from Wake Forest, really talented tackle that likely will play the right tackle position across from Trevor Gooseby this year. I think it probably takes them out of the Jordan Seaton sweepstakes, and we'll talk about that here in a second, but they're building a really good roster. That offense looks absolutely incredible. Still a couple of holes to fix on defense at linebacker and maybe safety, but overall, it's going to be a really good football team. It's going to be a team that probably comes in as the number one team in the country, maybe Oregon, another team to watch there, and it's going to be a team that has a lot of hype, just like they did in 2025. Can they fulfill that hype this time around? We'll find out. Very, very interesting attack mode from Texas. I don't think it's remotely done. Still a couple of things to figure out on the offensive line, and then on defense, add a couple of depth pieces as well. Are the Crimson Tide in trouble? Is Alabama in a bad spot moving forward? To me, it's a little bit overblown. Losing out on Cam Coleman is not ideal. Obviously not something you want. You probably weren't winning that battle, especially if it was a bidding war, which to a certain extent, I think it was. Now, I think Cam Coleman had more in mind than just that, but at the end of the day, there was a pretty penny thrown around for that guy. There's no doubt about it. Hollywood Smothers flipping really hurts as well. Both those were to the hands of Texas. Another one of those situations where that was going to be a tough battle to win. The second he got on campus at Austin, it was going to be tough to get him off it. But at the end of the day, you've made some nice additions as well. Noah Rogers, I think, is a really solid player that continues to grow and can be a very dangerous player, kind of replacing Isaiah Horton that found his way out of that room. Ty Haywood might not be a starter this year, could be a starter, very talented young player that was committed to Alabama, went up to Michigan for a year, and then has found his way back down. Really talented kid that absolutely can be a difference maker for you, maybe later on in the season, but still a very, very interesting prospect nonetheless. They've lost some big-time players. There's no doubt about that. I think we have to understand that the thing that we've always kind of gone after Kalen DeBoer for over these last couple of years is this team isn't mentally tough enough. This team isn't, physical enough at the line of scrimmage. They're not doing the things that you need to do to win at the SEC and win at the national level. But the reality is, to do that, you got to lose some players. To do that, you got to cut some of the fat. You got to lose some players that maybe aren't doing all the right things off the field. Now, it's not to say that these guys are terrible guys. It's not even to say that these aren't terrible losses for this football team. They've lost some big time players. But that was always going to happen. There was always going to be a moment where he had to kind of just pull the lever and say, I'm going to make my roster. I'm going to create it the way that I want to. And we'll see what it looks like in 2026. I expect them to take a small step back because of the quarterback change, because of a lot of moving parts on defense. I expect them to take a slight step back. But at the end of the day, it was always going to happen where a lot of those Saban-era guys found their way out of the program and he found new guys to replace them with. It might not be the ideal class as of right this second, but I think Kalen DeBoer has a plan, and I don't think he's fully off of that plan just because a couple of guys found their way out of the program. Jordan Seaton, the name that everyone is watching right about now, the offensive tackle that made his way out of Colorado and maybe off to Oregon, off to Florida, Georgia, Ole Miss, LSU, Mississippi State was where he was visiting because the Colorado offensive line coach made his way down there this offseason. But it'll be really, really interesting to watch this one unfold. It was really interesting to watch it unfold in real time when he announced he was going into the portal by using a video from the Colorado creative team. Just a insane move in so many different ways. This is a really big-time player, and is going to be a lot of big-time teams coming after them. We talked about Texas, the Melvin Siani commitment. I'd expect them to be less inclined to get into a bidding war here. I think they can still get into a little bit of a bidding war, as we understand, but I wouldn't expect Texas to be a big-time factor in this recruitment as we expected early on. Oregon, Florida are other teams to watch. I'd pick Oregon if I was to pick right this second. It's going to be a professional type recruitment. He's going to take his visits. He's going to go through this process, and then he's going to make a decision, and we'll see what that looks like. It'll be a lot like Cam Coleman. It'll be pretty quiet. People will be kind of guessing of what it's going to be. I think it'll be end up being Oregon. I think they'll have the money. I think they'll have the left tackle position to give him. I think that's the best fit for him. I just think that makes the most sense. So we'll see what happens there. Very talented kid. Obviously, maybe didn't go about leaving Colorado the best way that you possibly could have, but wherever he ends up, he's an absolute difference maker for that team. I'm kind of hoping it's Mississippi State just to make things fun, but at the end of the day, we'll see what happens with him and an absolute future first-round pick at offensive tackle here. And then real quickly, let's go through the top 10 portal classes. According to 247, over at On3, they do kind of an in and out. How much did you lose compared to how much you brought in? Very interesting over there as well. So if you want to go check that out, a little bit different. Indiana number 1, and they're number 7 on this list. But LSU, number 1 on this list with 29 commits. We knew it was going to be a roster that got flipped over pretty good. The quarterback room is Lane Kiffin's quarterback room now. He has added 3 different transfers. Landon Clark from Elon is a guy that I'd watch out for. Very, very interesting player that can do some really, really fun things. But then they bring in Hussein Longstreet, really talented kid from USC. Sam Levitt, as Brooks Austin likes to call him, a frantic playmaker. It's going to be fun. It's going to be stressful at times for LSU. But at the end of the day, they've done a nice job on the offensive line as well, backfilling that. Going to be a really good team. Texas comes in at number 2 with only 15 commits. Love the addition of Melvin Siani. Obviously, you get elite playmakers like Raleigh Brown, Hollywood Smothers, and Cam Coleman. A lot of good things are going to happen for you. Still got some work to do, but a very good class for Steve Sarkisian and all in year for them in 2026. Ole Miss, really nice additions here. 19 commits thus far. Taj Butler is kind of an under-the-radar name, a linebacker that came over from Georgia Tech. Really talented kid and someone I think could really pop in that defense. Penn State, they got 36 commits. A whole lot of them are from Iowa State. Now, James Peoples did come in from Ohio State. Really do like that pickup. I think that's a young, talented player that probably has a little bit of juice behind him from how last season went. Oklahoma State, we talked about them. It's a whole lot of North Texas kids. It's 49 commits. It was going to be a flipped-over roster. It has been flipped over, and Caleb Hawkins is a guy that I think could tear apart the Big 12 in 2026. Then you have Ohio State here with 15 commits. Just really, really good additions. They're kind of backfilling some positions. They're obviously filling the departures of guys like Sonny Styles and Caleb Downs, but they have young guys that are going to step into those roles. So it's not as, big head hunting, needing those big time players. You just need to backfill. Now, you pick up a guy like Dominic Kelly from Georgia. I think that is a budding star at DB. I love the addition of Devin McHugh, the wide receiver from UTSA. Fast. Really, really fast. Dangerous as can be. You put him across from Jeremiah Smith, it could be really interesting very quickly over there. Indiana comes in at 7. It's calculated. It's dialed. Nick Marsh is a great, great addition. I love the addition of Shaz Preston as well. Turbo Richard is a great, great running back. Probably will add one more there. Still some work to do. They got business to take care of on Monday, and then they'll get to that. But Kentucky, number 8. Love what Will Stein has done here. Obviously, you pick up Kenny Minchie. You pick up a couple of great wide receivers. Nick Anderson could be on the way from LSU. Really talented kid that started his career at Oklahoma. That'll be a really, really fun one to watch. Notre Dame, kind of just turning up the heat the last couple of days, really. 7 commits in the last little bit. Some really, really top-tier players. Quincy Porter is a very talented rising sophomore at wide receiver, someone to watch, coming over from Ohio State. It's going to be a really good team. It's going to be a really good class. They get Boubacar Traore to come back for 2026. It's a dangerous football team. As I see it right now, Texas, Oregon, Notre Dame, those are the 3 teams that seem to be pushing their chips into the center of the table, and they're doing a really good job thus far. A&M, really, really solid job filling gaps. They're the number 10 class here with 18 commits. Love the Isaiah Horton addition, and I think they have wide receivers in that group that many people don't know the name of yet. You will know very quickly. Mainly talking about Jerome Miles there. I think he's a difference maker that did not play during his freshman year because of injury. We'll talk about it more. As we get into the offseason, we'll look forward to 2026, but the portal is heating up quickly. It's going to continue to be chaotic. Kids have to get in throughout the rest of the day. I expect that to be a chaotic next 10 hours or so, and then we'll find out where they're all heading to, what these rosters look like. And then we'll get into spring practice, and we'll figure out what all this looks like and what teams are really pushing their chips into the center of the table. I think it's very clear that the teams in Eugene, Oregon, and Austin, Texas are all the way in. And we'll see what that looks like. Maybe it looks like them playing this time next year or a week from now this time next year in the national title. But we'll get to that in time. I'm going to pick Indiana to win the national title this time around. We will be back on Tuesday to break down that game, to break down kind of the season as a whole, to get to all the craziness. Maybe some more transfer portal news will pop up that we have to talk about. A lot of stuff coming on Tuesday night. But overall, enjoy this one. It is a really, really fun matchup. It is 2 teams that are more than deserving of being here. Indiana, one of the best stories that I've ever seen on a college football field. One of the more efficient, more just dialed in football teams that you will ever watch. Miami, game wreckers all over the football field. On both sides of the ball, they're difference makers, and they're guys that can totally change this game. I'm going to pick Indiana, but it's up for grabs, and it's going to be an incredible, incredible one down there in Hard Rock Stadium. Cannot wait for that one to get underway. But that'll do it for this edition of Just Another College Football Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please do like, subscribe, comment, do all that stuff. Means the world to me, helps me out a ton. We're about to get into the offseason, so it might be a little bit downturn. Let's be honest. College football is going to be crazy enough. We'll probably do Tuesday, Thursday throughout the offseason because where else are we going to go? It's college football. We got to talk about it year-round. So we will talk about that all on Tuesday. We'll get into the craziness that I'm sure is going to happen on Monday. But enjoy it all. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you guys on Tuesday.